It's overcast here at the magnificent Österreich Ring near Zeltweg, but there's prospect of a terrific race. For with 5 rounds still to go and 45 winning points still to be gained, any one of 6 men could still end up as this year's world champion. In spite of 4 superb wins, Alan Jones only leads Nelson Piquet by 7 points, and only 3 points cover the next 4, Reutemann, Lafitte, Arnoux and Pironi. Practice during 2 days of glorious weather was eventful to say the least of it, with timer Nigel Mansell in his Works Lotus, a superb effort. In fact, 3 British an hour, over a second faster than the next quickest, his teammate Jean of Jones and Reutemann, with the Ligiers of Lafitte and Pironi 5th and 6th. So the Renaults ought to dominate the race, but will they last, for they've had a lot of retirements this year. Well, there's René Arnoux, first in Brazil and South Africa, 5th in the World Championship and fastest in practice by a long, long way. Nigel Mansell, his first Grand Prix after a long slog to the top, including, incidentally, a broken neck. 54 laps, 200 miles, 24 starters, the 2 Renaults in the front row. Clean start, and look at Alan Jones, he's passed Jabouille already, so is Pironi. Alan Jones goes up to the Hellenique curve and into the lead, past René Arnoux, and the Australian in the Williams leads on lap 1. 2nd Pironi, 3rd Arnoux, 4th Giacomelli, 5th is Jean-Pierre Jabouille, 6th is Reutemann, 7th Piquet, and in 8th position Derek Daly in the Tyrrell, and Jody Scheckter is last.
Well, that seemed to me a strange start for Lafitte there. He was very slow away, but it looked to me as if Reutemann just moved very sharply to the right in front of him, and maybe Lafitte had to stand on his brakes, because as I saw him go up the hill, he seemed to be going properly again. He just slowed down for a moment, so I reckon he got carved up a bit there.
So, over the crest and down to the Bosch curve, it's Alan Jones, then Arnoux, then Pironi, and Jabouille is up ahead of Giacomelli. Giacomelli in 5th place. Jody Scheckter, the world champion in the Ferrari, still last of the 24 starters.
Here we have a chance to again. Look at Reutemann, yes, moving over on the feet. Reutemann's just at the back of the picture there. The feet now, you see him going slowly. The field is swarming past him. I reckon he probably had to stamp on his brake pedal a bit, and of course that puts you well back at a nice crowded start like that.
Lap 1 out of 54 at the Texaco curves, and it's Alan Jones in the Saudia Leyland Williams. There is Arnoux 2nd, Pironi 3rd, Jabouille 4th, Giacomelli 5th, Reutemann in 6th position. Over the crest they come, down towards the Jochen Rindt curve, almost at the end of lap 1. There is Piquet, behind Piquet, De Angelis, then Daly, then Ribach, and Lafitte coming up through the field, ahead of Jean-Pierre Jarier in the Candy Tyrrell. 1 lap completed, 53 laps to go.
Yes, well, Lafitte's certainly trying to make up for his lost time then. He's really charging through the field. Alan Jones made an excellent start. The Renaults were slow away, as they tend to be with their turbocharged engine. They got that little bit of lag as the boost comes up before they get full power, which is a big disadvantage for them at the start. But of course, on this circuit where power is the ultimate premium, and the Renaults have a huge straight line speed advantage, all they have to do is, if they can keep going around the corners quick enough, if he can get close enough behind Alan Jones, Arnoux is going to pick him off very easily indeed. But we see there's a little bit of a question mark here, because we haven't seen how the tyre performance has been in practice, but Arnoux is now pressing Jones hard.
And Jabouille is in 3rd position, so the 2 Renaults are 2nd and 3rd. The Saudia Leyland Williams of Alan Jones leads. This is lap 2, a long, long way to go, and you can almost see René Arnoux gaining visibly on the white and green Williams car. There's the race leader, number 27, 4 wins behind him this season already, including the contentious Spanish Grand Prix, Alan Jones. Arnoux much closer than he was. Jabouille now 3rd. In 4th position it's Pironi, Giacomelli, then Reutemann and Piquet virtually together. Down to the Jochen Rindt again. It's going to be 2 laps completed in a moment, and Giacomelli, Reutemann and Pironi absolutely together as the leaders come out of the corner, cross the line into lap 3. There's Jabouille in the Renault in 3rd position, and now Arnoux is right with Alan Jones.
Yes, René Arnoux is now getting into position to attack. I don't suppose he'll be able to do it along this next straight here, but if he can just get right up to Jones's exhaust, you watch how he closes up now on the straight as they come up to the next corner. because he's got this big power advantage. You'll be gaining 5 or 6 car lengths on the straight. If you can stay with him round this corner, he's got the long main downhill straight to follow, and that really should be enough for him.
Jones has got the handling in the Williams, Arnoux has got the speed in the Renault, and the Renault handles very well, and this is where René Arnoux could make his challenge. He's got his right wing right out of the gearbox of the Williams, and he's through. He just powers past, literally drives past Alan Jones with no trouble at all, and Jabouille is closing up in 3rd position as Arnoux and Jones go round the Bosch curve together, and now look at how Arnoux is pulling away. Lap 3.
Yes, here we can see it again. Well, I mean, this is a replay rather than an action replay, because it's a complete cakewalk. Arnoux's got probably 5 to 10 miles an hour more on the straight than Alan Jones. Just drove past him. An extremely depressing prospect for the driver of the slower car, always. Very pleasant for the guy in the quick one.
But let us remember that the Renaults have had a lot of reliability problems this season. They could have won many more races than they have won had they been reliable. And there's Giacomelli with Reutemann behind him, and behind Reutemann, Nelson Piquet. Giacomelli driving very, very well indeed. He's taken over the team leadership of the Alfa Romeo team after the tragic death of Patrick Depailler in practice for the German Grand Prix. There go the leaders. It's the 2 Renaults sandwiching the Williams. There's 4th Giacomelli, 5th Reutemann, 6th number 5 Nelson Piquet, 7th is Pironi. We are on lap 4 out of 54. And there, Giacomelli, Reutemann, Piquet, and Reutemann and Giacomelli in the V12 Alfa Romeo are pulling away a bit from the Brazilian driver Nelson Piquet. They're the leaders, and now Jabouille is going to take Jones. It's going to be a Renault 1st and 2nd in a moment, and it is. Jabouille through with as little trouble as René Arnoux had. So now the 2 1.5 litre turbocharged 500 horsepower plus Renaults are very much in the lead, and they could almost cruise home.
Well, it's just a carbon copy of Arnoux's straight line speed superiority. It's at the same place on the circuit. Jabouille is just walking past him.
1st, 2nd and 3rd, Renault, Williams, and this is the battle for 4th, and what a battle. Giacomelli driving like the veteran that he is not, because he hasn't been in racing all that long. Formula 2 European champion a couple of years ago, ahead of Reutemann and Piquet. Reutemann, the 2nd most experienced driver in the race, behind Emerson Fittipaldi, and Piquet's going to take him. Piquet drives through, takes 5th position from Reutemann. Now, is Piquet, the Brazilian, going to be able to close up on the Italian? In front of him, Bruno Giacomelli. That's Mario Andretti in the Essex Lotus, out yet again, the 1978 world champion, who has yet to score a single point in this 1980 World Championship Series. And it's another tragic race for Mario as the battle for 4th continues. Giacomelli, then Piquet, and there's Reutemann. 4th, 5th and 6th up the hill, absolutely together. And one wonders, as Mario Andretti gets out of the Lotus and looks inside with smoke pouring up from the engine compartment, how much longer he's going to stay in Formula One. It's been an absolutely terrible season for him. But the leaders together. This is as Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson used to be in the Lotus in 1978. Absolutely together, team formation, Frenchman leads Frenchman, completing another lap. They're pulling away a bit from Alan Jones. Let's look at the gap. There it is. Handling beautifully. Jean-Pierre Jabouille challenging, going very quick indeed, but holding his position as the battle for 4th continues. Now, Giacomelli and Piquet virtually together, but where is the 6th place man behind them? There's just a flash of the car there as the Alfa Romeo goes over the crest. It's Giacomelli, and Piquet's going through with Reutemann behind, and Piquet, who has taken Reutemann, now moves up into 4th position. Nelson Piquet takes 4th position at Jochen Rindt curve.
Really excellent driving by Piquet, Murray. He's in a car that is not really as fast as Reutemann's, for example, that he's already forced his way past. He's certain. Here we can see it again. He's nipped out. Giacomelli saw him coming, but there was nothing he could do about it, and he outbraked him beautifully. Making sure that he was well in front of him, because Giacomelli's a tough man to pass, and unless you're well through, he's going to move into you. But as I was saying, Piquet is really driving well. He's not in the best car. He's running second place in the World Championship at the moment, mainly on reliability, and because he is driving very forcefully indeed to get that car up there, because he's really driving that car beyond, he's further up the field than he should be in that car.
And fastest in the race so far is Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who's just broken the lap record, 1 minute 35.4, and that is the battle for 11th position, with Derek Daly leading Keke Rosberg. Daly in the Tyrrell, Rosberg in the new Fittipaldi, which is going extremely well indeed, and behind them Alain Prost as they go round the right-hander at Bosch curve. Daly driving a steady, cool race as they go down to Texaco, running a little wide with Rosberg, and he's off. That's Derek Daly off, spinning backwards, and that's a barbed wire fence behind them, and he stopped just in the very nick of time. Derek Daly very much out of the race, but is he all right? I can see his helmet moving. Yes, he's okay. He's getting out of the car, and he's a very, very lucky man.
Yeah, I can't quite honestly see what happened there, Murray. Rosberg went inside him. Whether Daly had a look at him or something and lost concentration, now seems to have lost control of the car, or whether he might have had a problem with the car, because he just went straight on. That saved the organisers a bit of work with their combine harvester. He's helping him out there. And quite why they leave that wooden pole there on that fence there is really ridiculous, because it doesn't seem to be keeping anybody out from anything. And if he'd gone in forwards, that could have taken his head off.
So Derek Daly, a very lucky man. Lap 15, just over half distance. René Arnoux in the Renault. Number 16 leads his teammate Jean-Pierre Jabouille. In third position, Alan Jones in the Williams. Fourth, Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. Fifth, Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo. And in sixth position behind him in the second Williams car, Carlos Reutemann. Now there is Piquet leading Giacomelli, behind Giacomelli, Carlos Reutemann, so that's the sixth, and this is the battle for seventh, and it's Elio De Angelis in the Essex Lotus, just ahead of Jacques Lafitte, who has charged up through the field after a bad start, and now it looks as though he's going to take De Angelis as they go into the Hella-League curve, and he does. Jacques Lafitte up into seventh position, the man who won the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim last weekend, his fourth Grand Prix victory in his career. And René Arnoux is now right on the tail of and about to lap the reigning world champion Jody Scheckter in the Ferrari, who has just announced his retirement at the end of this season from Grand Prix racing. So Arnoux laps Scheckter. Behind Scheckter now with another 37 laps to go. The second place man in the race, Jean-Pierre Jabouille. There he is in the second Renault. Arnoux, Scheckter, Jabouille past him, and Arnoux is doing about 180 miles an hour on a quick conversion from kilometres to miles an hour on the fastest part of the course. Jabouille, Bosch curve. There's the gap between the first and second, and now Jean-Pierre Jabouille is some 10 seconds ahead of Alan Jones as Derek Daly walks in. And we hear that Carlos Reutemann has got past Giacomelli into fifth. Villeneuve is in the pits in the Ferrari changing tyres as Pironi goes through into the pits. And the interesting thing is that Villeneuve uses the same make of tyre as the Renaults now. They've had tyre problems, and that's Alan Jones passing Arnoux. Alan Jones passing the man who was leading the race. So that must mean that Jean-Pierre Jabouille has got past Arnoux too and into the lead. And there is Jabouille. Jabouille leading. He's lapped Patrese behind him. And Arnoux is in the pits. Presumably he had a puncture from the way he came in. And the seconds are ticking away. He's losing places all the time. The Renault team have had the most appalling luck this season. But down goes the car. And René Arnoux is accelerating away, and he's lost 9 places. He rejoins the race in 10th place. Lap 23, and Jean-Pierre Jabouille leads. He's just lapped Rupert Keegan in the Williams. And the interesting thing is that we know that René Arnoux is harder on tyres than the man you're looking at, number 15, the race leader Jean-Pierre Jabouille, as a result of which Arnoux started the race on a harder compound tyre than Jean-Pierre Jabouille, and one wonders therefore, since Villeneuve has been in, how Jabouille's tyres are going to last. Well, he goes through and completes another lap.
Yeah, it did seem to me, Murray, that because Arnoux slowed down so much, rather than having his tyres going off, it would appear that it was a puncture. And of course that the hard or softness of the compound doesn't really affect that. If you pick up a stone, you pick up a stone. And so that doesn't necessarily bode badly for Jabouille, but we know they're running pretty marginally on tyres, and I've been watching right from very early in the race, and about lap 7 or 8, you could see the tyres on Jabouille and Arnoux cars scuffing up a bit. But I'm inclined to think that that's all right. Sometimes, you know, that's a bad sign, usually is, but it doesn't seem to have deteriorated at all, and it may just be the way they're working on the track, because they're definitely, if you look at the tread face, you will see them scuffing.
And there's a terrific scrap going on there for the places after Alan Jones. There's Jody Scheckter. Piquet is now 4th, Reutemann is 5th, and Giacomelli is in 6th place. So Giacomelli has been displaced, and the battle now is very much between Reutemann and Piquet, and Reutemann goes through. Reutemann then up into 3rd position behind his teammate. And that's good news for Alan Jones, because Alan Jones wants to have as many places as he can between himself and Nelson Piquet in order to enhance Jones's World Championship positions. Jones leads the World Championship, and Piquet on the right of your pictures now is in 2nd position. So Carlos Reutemann supporting his teammate, the World Championship leader Alan Jones, superbly.
Looking at this again, it really does look to me as if Piquet was caught completely napping. You see, look, he's turning the corner. I don't think he thought that Reutemann was going to have a go at all. And that was a pretty uncharacteristic bit of opportunism by Reutemann.
And Giacomelli has retaken Piquet as they both lap Jody Scheckter. What a terrific race Giacomelli is driving.
That makes me think maybe Piquet's in a bit of trouble of some sort then. That was the other thing, of course. Maybe he slowed up just a little bit, but he seems to be going healthily along at the moment, so maybe he's got a little bit of brake trouble or something like that that's just slowing him into the corners enough to get the others by, because it's quite a sharp turnaround. He suddenly dropped the 2 people that he fought so hard to get past earlier in the race.
Young Giacomelli then in 4th position ahead of Nelson Piquet. Lafitte is 6th and coming up fast. De Angelis is in 7th position, and there is René Arnoux fighting back. He rejoined in 10th position. He's up into 9th place now, gaining on Alain Prost in the Marlboro McLaren in front of him. There's Prost. There is René Arnoux back into the race, trying desperately to get back into the points to keep his World Championship chances alive, because he could still do it. René Arnoux then leading the race, Jabouille, and out of the race, Eddie Cheever, the young American-Italian driver who is joining in the Osella team, as we look at Nelson Piquet in 5th position ahead of Jacques Lafitte, who is in 6th place. How far behind is Lafitte? And there's the answer, right behind Nelson Piquet. Now Lafitte and they're both coming up and taking Giacomelli. So Giacomelli goes down to 6th, Piquet is 4th, Lafitte is 5th as I talk to you, and Lafitte pushing very hard indeed, and Giacomelli must be in trouble.
Yes, I think Giacomelli's in trouble. Yes, in fact, you can see him just at the right of the picture, just gone out at the moment. He was going into the pits. But Murray, it's amazing. Jacques Lafitte, I think I must have been right about Reutemann carving him up at the start, probably inadvertently, but Jacques Lafitte has really driven a race like a man who felt very wronged at the start and is on a real adrenaline charge. He's really charged through this race, and he's pressuring very hard indeed now.
That's Giacomelli's car. He's been into the pits. He's had a new wheel put on. He obviously went out too soon, because that's the end of the pits road, and the wheel has come off, and Giacomelli's race is run. So too is that of John Watson, 8th position, 4th at Long Beach, 7th at France, 8th in Britain. Not a very good season for John Watson. Look at all the muck on his tyres. That's because the soft compound has picked up road dirt and grass and muck, and John Watson gets out of the car with smoke pouring from it. So another non-finish for poor John Watson, with Mario Andretti's car in the background. And Piquet, that's Lafitte ahead of Piquet. So Jacques Lafitte has got ahead of Nelson Piquet up into 4th position. 26, Jacques Lafitte, 4th. Number 5, Nelson Piquet in the Brabham Ford is in 5th position. And Lafitte, the winner in Germany, is now well up in the World Championship points. His teammate Didier Pironi well out of the race. He's been into the pits and rejoined and into the pits again. Carlos Reutemann, lap 42, 3rd position. Jones ahead of him, Jabouille ahead of him, and in 4th position behind him. Lafitte, Piquet 5th, De Angelis 6th, then Prost and Villeneuve as the Argentine driver, the man who won at Monaco, 2nd in Germany, 3rd in Belgium and in Britain, 3rd in the World Championship, charges on, aiming to keep ahead of Nelson Piquet and help Alan Jones. Lap 43 and Nigel Mansell is out in 13th position, and we've had news that when his car was topped up with fuel just before the race began, fuel was spilt down Mansell's back, so he must have been driving in absolute agony for nearly the full race distance, because this is lap 43, and he can be very, very proud of a very fine drive. The Renault pit. They're ready for surely not Jabouille after Arnoux tyre trouble. There is Jabouille leading the race. How are his tyres? We know he's got a rev limit of 10,000 RPM. His lead was over 10 seconds, and now look, it's down to 7.2 seconds. Do you think, James, there's any danger of him coming in?
Well, you can't tell, Murray. I mean, you can see a bit of scuffing on the tyres there, but as I say, that's been going right from the beginning of the race, and they don't appear to have deteriorated at all. His lead is being edged away, but he seems that it could be that he's controlling it, because he's letting it edge away at roughly the right rate to sort of finish the race in line astern with Jones, which would be a reasonable attitude to take if he's nursing tyres and of course this engine problem that's been worrying them, and they're keeping the revs down and trying to treat their engine as gently as possible because they've got a valve spring problem that they're having trouble curing.
Jean-Pierre Jabouille coming up to lap Rupert Keegan, the young Englishman, back into Grand Prix racing after 2 years out of it. So Alan Jones, lap 52 out of 54 in 2nd place, is really charging. The gap was 2 seconds and 10 seconds, and you can see what it is now as Jabouille leads going round the left-hander. Alan Jones has carved the gap down from 10 seconds to 2 seconds. He's only got this lap and the 53rd and 54th laps to do something about catching Jean-Pierre Jabouille, then getting past him, but there's no question of Jabouille coming into the pits now. If he does, his race win has gone, and after winning in France last year and having such bad luck this year, he'll be determined to win. Into lap 53, the penultimate, last lap but one. There's Jabouille up the approach to the Hellelic chicane. Jones behind him. First, Jabouille. Second, Alan Jones. That is the gap. From the Hellelic chicane, noch zwei Runden, 2 laps to go.
Yes, it looks as if Jabouille's got it fairly well under control, of course, now, because even if Jones can get right up to him, he's still got to pass him. And with the power advantage that the Renault enjoys, that is a virtually impossible task, because Jabouille certainly isn't going to make a mistake now. Jones can't drive around the outside of him on a corner, and every time they get to the straight, the Renault will just go away from him.
Jabouille leads, Jones second and charging. Reutemann, Jones's teammate, in 3rd position. Lafitte, well, that's the gap, 1.35 seconds between... No, that's the speed of Arnoux, 295 k's, and there's only 1.3 seconds between Jabouille, the leader, and Alan Jones, with 1 lap to go at the end of this one. Round again. Now look at Jabouille. There's Jones. They're almost down to start the last lap now. That's the ascent which leads down to the Jochen Rindt curve, named after the great Austrian late world champion. This is the start of the last lap. That's the gap. Alan Jones getting closer and closer all the time. But as James has just said, catching up is one thing, getting past is quite another. And it's going to be a very, very determined Jean-Pierre Jabouille after so many failures this season. He means to win. He's got victory behind him last year at France. He's got the chance of a second Grand Prix win in front of him with only about 2 miles to go now in this 200-mile race. His teammate René Arnoux, the fastest lap so far when he rejoined on soft compound tyres after his pit stop. And it's over the crest and down to the Bosch curve for the last time, the 54th and last time.
Jabouille does look annoyingly in control from Jones's point of view, but it's been a great charge by Alan Jones, the way he's fought back towards the end of the race. And of course he's absolutely right to do that, because little things can go wrong with Jabouille's car. He can make a mistake, he's tired, it's been a long race, and Jones has really done a great fight against heavy odds.
And Jean-Pierre Jabouille must be both a relaxed and a worried man, paradoxically enough, in the cockpit. Relaxed because he's well into the rhythm of the race, it's nearly over. Worried because things can still go wrong, but there's not very much longer for him to wait, and Alan Jones certainly can't take him unless something goes wrong with the Renault in the very, very closing stages, and that would be cruel and bitter luck. He's into the last corner. Jabouille can see the checkered flag. Jones right behind him, getting closer but not close enough. Jabouille wins, and Jones is in second place. And a fine and very well-deserved victory for the Frenchman. 0.82 seconds ahead of Jones. Reutemann third, Lafitte fourth, Piquet fifth, and Elliot. Well, Jabouille can be very, very proud of himself as a result of that, but the World Championship results are still very, very close indeed, because as they come down at the end of their closing down lap, Lafitte, Arnoux and Pironi are still a joint fifth, and any one of them could still, without a doubt, be world champion before the end of this year. Well, in 2 weeks' time, it's round 12 of the 15-race 1980 World Championship, the Dutch Grand Prix amidst the sand dunes at Zandvoort, with the world champion